Hey everyone, my name is Tom Bly11, and we are seconds away from I'm Going In Starting Up. It's the newest podcast sharing stories of adversity, strength, and love from some amazing guests. So here we go. Are you ready? Three, two, one. Hey, welcome to I'm Going In. I'm Tom Bly11, and I am joined by a truly amazing guest, Kathryn Severns Avery from Colorado. And we're going to get into your story of true adversity and what you're doing right now to help so many in need in our first responder community. I just can't wait to really get into your story. We talked a little bit prior to the recording of this. You're just so you're infectious as a human being.
Thank
Like
you.
you just want to you're the person we want at a party. You're the person we want
Yep.
in our conversation. So,
Yeah.
Kevin, thank you for joining. I'm Going In.
Thank you for having me, Todd. It's such an honor to meet you and to spend time with you. We were talking earlier about how we both had destiny moments in our lives. And when you are called to step up, you have a choice. Like you said, you can either do it or not do it. My choice came unexpectedly on December 4th of 2020. So we're right in the middle of COVID. We're getting ready for another lockdown. My husband Chris and I were preparing, to go get some groceries because we knew that okay, the stores are going to be closed and it's going to be hard to get out.
Yeah.
We also had my then 96-year-old dad who had been living with us.
Wow.
My stepmother passed. My dad came to live with us in 2017. Then COVID happens. We were getting ready to put him into a memory care facility. We were fortunately able to purchase a house for him 3 doors down from our house. So we
Wow.
basically created his own COVID free memory care facility with, as Chris used to say, hot and cold running caregivers. So we're getting ready to do that. And I am working in the garage at 4:30 in the morning for my neighborhood's holiday lighting contest because I'd won it 2 years in a row.
Wow.
And Chris was like, go for a hat trick. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm making this 8-foot angel. It's huge. And it's the centerpiece of this lighting display. And
Wow.
Chris gets up and it was a typical morning, but atypical. Chris and I had a call and response that we did every morning. He'd go up and go, how's my baby? And I would answer with him, I'm fine, my angel, my love, my darling. So, I mean, we
Wow.
we had a great marriage. And so we wake up that morning and that little spidey sense, that little voice you talked about went off in my head. And we had had an argument a couple of weeks prior and that little voice said, you need to apologize to your husband for that. And I was like, no, I don't. And it's like, no, you really need to do that. So he comes down and we're having coffee. And I said, I owe you an apology. And he's like, for what? And I said, well, the argument that we had, um, I was in the wrong. That was basically a short summation of it. And my husband looked at me and he said, I love only you.
Mhm.
And I thought, wow. And so then, we're going through the morning, getting the grocery list together. And right before he goes, that voice goes off again and says, make sure you kiss him goodbye. So he's sitting at the island in our kitchen. I go up and I kiss him like 6 times on the back and the neck in the most annoying way possible.
Mhm.
And I whispered in his ear, do you know how much I love you? And
Wow.
other than, I'll see you later, those were my last words and interactions with my husband. So
Wow.
when people have those intuitive promptings, pay attention.
Wow.
Pay attention. So Chris leaves, is on his way to the grocery store. He's sitting at a traffic light at an intersection. The light turns green and he is broadsided by 3 robbery suspects who are fleeing from police who have just committed a robbery.
Oh,
The car, they were going so fast, like 75 to 80 miles an hour. It pushed our car sideways down the street about 30 yards, broke the front axle, and the driver's side door was practically at the midline of our car.
oh, geez.
So the first responders show up. So, and I'll backtrack just a minute. At 2 minutes, 3 minutes after two, I'm in the garage still working, and my whole body shakes. And I thought, something just happened to Chris. I was like, he went to the grocery store. He'll be back. And about 20 minutes later, I'm hearing helicopters and sirens. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, something's going on.
Mm.
And then it starts to get later and later. And I'm calling him and texting him. And at first, I'm angry because I think he's out Christmas shopping. And I'm like, you need to be home, you know?
Yeah.
And that voice goes, do not be angry with him.
Ah,
And so it's just like, I'm listening. And it gets to be about 4:30. The day that Chris was killed, we were supposed to see our drywall for the first time in the house that I'm sitting in that we were remodeling. And the contractor was getting ready to leave. And he's like, can I do anything? What do you need? And I said, I need my husband to come home.
mm.
And about that time, I thought, you better call the non-emergency number. And I'm patched through to a voice. And I said, my husband went out to pick up groceries about an hour and a half ago. He should have been home by now, and he's not. And so this person's like, okay, can you give me a description of the car? Tell me about your husband, blah, blah, blah. So then it gets to be later, and he's like, well, I'll keep you, if I hear anything, I'll keep you updated. So it gets to be dark, and my husband was a big man. And
Mm.
so I thought, well, maybe he had a medical emergency. So I drove to the grocery store where he was to pick up the groceries, but I went a different route than he went.
Oh,
So
wow.
I did not come across the crash scene. So that to me was like
Wow.
angels all over
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So I get to the
Mm.
and I'm going up and down all of the aisles in the parking lot. I don't see our car. I go over to where you're supposed to pick up the groceries, and I said, "Did my husband ever come get the groceries?" And they're like, "No, they're still here." At that point, I knew he was dead.
Ah, wow.
So I called a friend of mine who's highly intuitive, like I'm highly intuitive, and I said, "Rochelle, something's really wrong." And she just starts to cry, and she said, "Kath, it's really bad." And I was like, okay, I knew that. So I called back this gentleman that I had spoken with and said, hey, I went to where Chris was supposed to pick up the groceries. He didn't get them. And he's like, okay, I'll keep updating, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So then that night I'm trying to find my iPhone to see if I can locate where Chris's iPhone is. Well, he never activated it because my husband was technology challenged.
Mm.
So I'm in this room. This was the office that Chris had. It doesn't look quite the same now, but literally I was sitting at a desk behind us, and I see people on my front porch. And I thought, it's awfully late for solicitors. And
Mm.
the doorbell rings, and I open the door and I see two police officers and two women. And they said, may we come in? And I said, of course. And that little voice in my head says, you better be sitting down. So I went
Wow.
over and sat where Chris had been sitting that morning. And I just looked at him and I said, is he dead? And they said, yes, I'm so sorry. It was a traffic accident. So they're
Mm.
talking, and like, I had called a friend of mine who's local, who's also a psychologist, and she's one of my closest friends. And I said, Barbara, this is what's going on. She's like, do you want me to come over? I said, of course. And so she literally showed up right behind them. So they have just walked in. She walks in behind them because after they say
Wow.
that, it's just like in the movies. All I hear is wah, wah, wah. The
Mm.
words are not making sense. So Barbara jumps into note-taking mode. She's doing this. And then I notice one of the police officers leaves my kitchen and comes into this room and shuts the door and takes a phone call. And I thought, that's weird. And so he comes out and he says, I'm now at liberty to tell you what happened. And I was like, what? And they're like, and they told me about the robbery. He told me that there had been a police chase. The suspects were driving the wrong way on Alameda Boulevard, weaving in and out of traffic. They called off the chase. They continued down through a residential neighborhood, 70 miles an hour, and
Wow.
plowed into Chris and killed him.
Ah,
So the hard part for me was like, where was the robbery? It was at a Ulta beauty store. I'm like, what do you steal at an Ulta beauty store?
Yeah.
Well, we have boosting in this country where people steal product and then go sell it on the internet and they make a lot of money because it's free inventory. So my husband died for $7,500 worth of fragrances.
Unbelievable.
It was
Wow.
just like that was crazy. So
I'm so
I,
sorry. That's
I Todd, it was just like, but once again, everything in my life prepared me for that moment. And what was really weird was about 2 weeks earlier, I kept on seeing our car being hit by another car.
yeah.
And I thought, that's bizarre. But, again, to me, that's how Holy Spirit works. It
Yeah.
just like it feeds us information. So there was my background in journalism. I knew that this would be a big story. I knew that my reaction to it, if I didn't take control of the thread line, a very different story was going to be told. So when I was contacted by the media for pictures of Chris, oh, and that's the other thing. By the grace of God, I did not watch the news that night, or I would have watched my husband die on television from the surveillance video at the convenience store at that corner.
Oh, geez. Wow.
Yeah, because the news was running that before the notification team had notified me. And so,
Your guardian angel was literally guiding you through
right,
this process all the
right,
way, even up to that point.
up to that
Wow.
point.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, how am I going to respond to this? And I said, that CBS was the one who had contacted me for photographs. Everybody else was just pulling them off the internet. And I
Mm.
said, I will send you photographs, but I'm sending you a letter along with it. And when I know that you've read the letter, I'll give you the photos. And in that letter, I asked the community to do acts of service in memory of my husband. We're in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
People are, don't have incomes. And I was like, use your time, talent, and treasure to do something for someone else and think of Chris.
Wow.
Because and I know the fastest way to feel better is to do something for someone else.
That's right.
So
Mm.
they called me back and said, would you be willing to narrate this as the basis of our coverage? And I said, yes. So I literally sat
Wow.
upstairs in my bedroom
Oh my
closet.
gosh.
I read the letter. I sent them the photos, and they put together the most beautiful 2.5 minute package of this. Because one of the things I talked about that you and I hinted at earlier, everything in our life is a choice. And I talked about the fact that, if Chris had made a different choice or the robbers had made a different choice, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
That's right.
If Chris had hesitated 2, even 3 seconds at that intersection, they would have blown right in front of him, or they would have hit the car in such a way that he did not die.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, and I said, and I made two choices the day that Chris was killed. Number one, I would not let this experience ruin my life. And number two, I would not let him die in vain.
Mm. Yeah.
And
Wow.
that's where
Ooh.
I think, as victim, I hate the word victims. I am not a victim in any sense of the word. But when you think about that and the number of people that get lost in the negative swirl of that emotion, and it pulls them down into the depths of their being,
Yeah.
you have a choice. Are you going to rise or are you going to stay there?
Mm.
So when I had the victims advocate groups contact me and say, we have these groups for survivors, I'm like, I'll never be there. And they were like, what? So what most people don't know is that Chris was the eighth person close to me that I've lost.
Oh, wow.
I lost my mom at 22 to a car accident. She was in a persistent vegetative state for 4.5 years before she died.
Wow.
After Karen Ann Quinlan, my mom is the test case for taking people off of life support in the United States. I lost a 14-year-old nephew to a brain tumor. I lost his mother, my sister, 6 months later to recurrent endometrial cancer that her doctor kept on telling her was stress-induced symptoms caused by her son's illness. So she never got treatment, never was diagnosed. I lost my best friend. I lost my stepmom. I
Wow.
lost Chris. My brother died unexpectedly after a surgery. I lose my best friend, and like my stepmom dies, my dad comes, and then I lose Chris. So
Oh,
when people would say to me, Kathryn, you're handling this so well, I've been through this cycle so many
yeah.
times, I know it like my own name.
Yeah.
And as you know, the first three, I call it the resurrection experience, because for the first 3 days, you feel like you have been filleted and are raw,
Mm.
just raw.
Hmm. That's
You've
right.
been there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. 100%. First of all, I mean your story, you're a power player. Like you literally are just you amplify power in terms of your strength, your inner being, your process on how you're going about the positivity that you spun on this extremely challenging time. The fact number one, you had me right from the get-go when you were talking about the love part of it, and how you you cherish that one instant, that moment that you didn't want ever to, like, you almost foresaw that happening and you said, nope, I'm going to take advantage of this. We're going to say, I love you. And then, unfortunately that happens. And then the other part that really got me is I've been on the other side of that several times where I've held someone in my arms that's passed in that way,
Yeah.
and in an unfortunate way. And it brought me to the moment when those parents were notified, and that sitting in that room, and that defeat, the slam down, the reality that their loved one is not going to be coming home like yours. The fact that you've done this over and over and you've built kind of this routine, and it's not a bad one. You've just learned how to channel this in a way that you're going to make sure that, like you said, Chris's life, it's not going to be one lost in vain. It's going to be one that's going to inspire.
Right.
You're inspiring. And it's just absolutely amazing. What an incredible story to that part. Can you please explain? You've got two urns behind you.
Oh, yes.
Can you talk about that? And then I want you to go into what started the ranch and everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh, because
yeah,
that's an even better story.
yeah.
So the two urns behind me, this one has Chris's ashes in it. When Chris and I would go to the Cherry Creek Arts Festival, we always admired these really intricate created boxes. And Chris had gotten the card of a guy and was like, we're going to get one of those. So after Chris passed, I went to the guy's website to see if I could contact him. Well, it turned out he had passed away too. So I was like, okay. So I actually went to Red Rocks Community College and talked to the guy who's in the head of their industrial arts program and said, can you help me create this vessel that looks like this? So on Valentine's Day of 2021, I decided that I was going to transfer Chris's ashes from the little plastic box that they came in into this beautiful vessel that had been created. So, Chris always, and this is so funny, I love cut flowers.
Hmm.
Chris would always buy me orchids. And I was like, I don't like orchids. I mean, I like them, but I like bouquets better. And what I didn't realize was that this was foreshadowing the day I'm transferring his ashes into this vessel. I have 7 orchid plants that are all in bloom that Chris has given me. And they're
Wow.
surrounding this on our island in the kitchen.
Oh
I've
my
got a
God.
candle lit, I've got a bottle of wine, and I'm transferring the ashes into this vessel and shaking them down and patting them and, remembering
Mhm.
all the good times that we had together.
What a
Um,
moment.
yeah, I was Chris's third wife. He was my first husband.
Mhm.
So he used to tell people I had 2 starter wives and then I found the right one.
There you go. Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, and I got married late in life. I did the career thing, and I'd been engaged twice. But Chris was like he was Mr. Right
He
for
was the
you.
one.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm tapping these down, and like all of a sudden, the thing's full, and there's like a cup of Chris left over,
Oh,
and I'm like, honey, you always were larger than life. And it's like, you're not going to fit in there. So I actually had a smaller version of the same thing made. So this is the one that stays with me. And that's my roadie that travels with me when I need to take Chris along.
that's amazing. Yeah. So the people that are listening to this, it's
Mhm.
this beautiful urn. It's like a brownish. It's got some sandstone to it. It's absolutely
Yeah.
gorgeous, and it sits on
Yeah.
this amazing shelf. And then right above it
Yep.
is that small little travel. Yeah.
Yep.
That,
Yep.
wow. What a story. I mean, just even that moment in itself of
Yeah.
sitting there and going through those memories and the
Uh-huh.
strength you must have had in that moment, and just probably just, oh, so intimate. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
And
so
you want to
yeah,
hear
go
about how
ahead.
the ranch started?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
you because
yeah,
in our previous right before you were talking about, I think it was Connecticut, or you were talking about
in
uh
Maine.
in
Yeah.
Maine. Oh, that,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the unfortunate
Yeah.
mass shooting in Maine, which,
Yeah.
by the way, every
Exactly.
time there's something like that that happens, I am instantly transported mentally. I'm experiencing what those poor people are experiencing. I'm experiencing the aftermath. I think I'm not the only one. I'm sure a lot of trauma victims, or not victims, but people that are experiencing trauma, go through that. Our military vets, our first
Uh-huh.
responders, we've
Right.
got a ton of family and friends that are on that. We talk about this stuff. So there you are. This
Yeah.
happens, and
Right.
go ahead.
Yeah. So April 26th of 2021 would have been a milestone birthday for Chris. He would have turned 75.
Wow.
And so I wasn't going to spend that birthday alone.
Mm.
So I called the commander that I had talked with the day that Chris was killed and said, hey, Chris was working on a book called Mindfully Gracious. It's going to be published posthumously this year. I'm a writer as well, so I finished the book for him. But
Wow.
Chris was appalled by the lack of civility in our world and how, particularly over the last 6 years, we've just become nasty. And that's not necessary. So
That's
Chris
right.
wrote this book, and it's filled with these wonderful examples of how being mindfully gracious not only changes you, but changes the other person.
So powerful. Yeah.
So I had created the Christopher G. Avery Mindfully Gracious Award and was giving it to the Lakewood, Colorado Police Department because after Chris was killed, they took such good care of me. Like every evening, they would pull into my driveway to look at my Christmas lights and flash their lights, so I knew that they were there.
Wow. Oh, it gives me chills. That's
Yeah. So and it gets better. So
so amazing.
after a couple of days of being in the house here, it was like I can't do this. So I moved in with my dad, who's only 3 doors away. And on Christmas morning, I'm in the shower, and his caretaker comes and knocks on the door and says, I am so sorry to disturb you, but there's a Lakewood police officer at your front door. And my heart just like dropped. I was like, now what? And I said, I'm in the shower. She's like, yeah, he says he'll wait. And then I started to panic. I mean, I was like, okay, because I have nieces and nephews that lived in the area. And I was like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
So my hair's dripping wet. I don't have any makeup on. I throw clothes on. I fly to the front door. I open the front door and I almost drop to my knees. I can't say it without crying because parked in front of my dad's house are 6 police cruisers with their lights on and the guys standing at parade rest. They took time rather than being with their families on Christmas morning to come pay tribute to my husband and to just be there for me.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah,
So human spirit, so kind.
yeah. And
Wow.
the
Mm.
number of people who asked me after Chris was killed, are you going to sue the Lakewood Police Department? I was like, why would I do that? And they're like, well, you could get a lot of money. I'm like, they were doing their job. And
That's
no,
right.
I'm not going to do that. I don't
Mm,
need somebody else to blame. This was an accident that
yeah,
was perpetrated by criminals.
right.
So why would I blame the police for this?
That's right.
So I
Oh,
I went outside. I greeted all of them. Of course, we're all in masks because it's COVID.
oh,
And I said, stay there. I said, I need you to see something. And I call her my best friend on the planet, had sent me a photograph of Chris taken at our house in Maine. He's on one of our couches. He's holding our cat like this, and the cat's got this really strange expression on its face, like this, very uncomfortable. And Chris is fast asleep. And so I grabbed that photo and I went outside to them and I said, this is how I want you to remember my husband, because I knew at least two of them had been on scene with him.
oh, wow. Yeah.
And I
Mm,
said, this is what I want you to remember, not what
mm,
you saw that day. And they all took pictures of that picture.
yeah.
And that was
Mm,
just kind of like the beginning. So the Lakewood PD got the Christopher G. Avery Mindfully Gracious Award. And Chris loved to cook. I love to cook. So I decided, well, let's take food from Chris's favorite restaurants to all the roll calls. And I had said that, I called about a month before and said I wanted to do this. And then 2 days before, I call and talk to the commander and said, okay, what time do I need to show up with the food? And he's like, oh, you're really going to do that? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, okay. Because I guess they get a lot of people out there who tell them that they're going to do stuff and then never follow through. That
wow.
is not me.
Yeah.
So I show up at roll call. So there are four different roles, four different, shifts, and basically I'm bringing food four different times. But that morning, the morning roll call, I am in there as the agent first on scene, and they call themselves agents, not officers at Lakewood, is talking about something that had happened the day before where a 14-year-old boy had stabbed his mother 30 times, including through the skull. And he has no idea who I am. And I am hearing in graphic and uncensored
Yeah.
language what was happening. And I'm like, why is he at work? I don't understand. Why is he here? And so after roll call was over, I looked at Commander Bates and said, I don't get it. What's he doing at work? And his response was, and the other command staff that was there, were chiming in as well. Well, first of all, he doesn't want to sit at home by himself and think
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
Secondly, he may not want or need mental health counseling. And third, there's no other place for him to go. And I thought, this is so wrong. This is so wrong. And that started me thinking.
Wow.
So there are three defendants, three trials that are going to take place over the next 6 months. And so this is, we're basically starting to get into the summer, and I can't get to our vacation rental property in Maine, which was Chris's favorite place on the planet. So I called the HR department and said, how do I donate time at my vacation rental property to your agents? And after stunned silence, the response was, I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that question before.
Wow.
So she's like, let me do some research. And so I get a call back the next day, and it's like, well, it can't be a direct donation because that's a bribe and you could go to
Oh,
jail for that. I'm like, well,
we don't
let's
want
not do
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was asked to meet with a member of the Fraternal Order of Police from the Lakewood Lodge, and then to be able to talk about how we might be able to do this through the FOP. So I meet at the detective at a Starbucks, and he walks in and he sits down, and I start to talk about, making this donation. The first words out of his mouth to me are, what do you want? I'm like, excuse me? He's like, what do you want? You have to want something. I'm like, I don't want anything. I mean, I'm a little affronted by this. He's go, you have to want something. And so I just looked at him. I said, okay, I want to say thank you. And he's like, what? I said, I want to say thank you. And so all of a sudden you watch his whole demeanor start to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And we work out
Mm.
how to make this happen. The chief decided not to have it go to Lakewood because he didn't want anything to interfere with the trials, to have any kind of bias
That
or
makes sense. Yeah.
the optics being weird. So
Right.
that was actually passed off to a West Metro Fire family, and they went to my house in Maine and had a ball. So I'm in this conversation with the detective, and I say, and I have this idea. I want to buy a ranch and create a place for everyone in the traumatic event life cycle to go to, because it's not just the police and fire, it's dispatch, fire and EMS, law enforcement, emergency department and ICU personnel,
Yeah.
victims advocates, and members of the judiciary and their families
Yeah.
who are affected. It's like I was so blissfully ignorant of what first responders do. I never had interactions with them before.
Yeah.
So the more I learned, the more it was like, this is insane. These people show up every day. They do, they keep us safe. They are with us in our most unimaginable circumstances. And Chris was only one call that they had that day.
That's right. Yeah.
And it just kind of blew me open. So, and he was like, he's like, you want to do what? I'm like, I want to buy a ranch. And at that point in time, I was kind of like, okay. So again, there are no accidents. Chris passed in December. On March 19th of 2021, my dad passed.
Oh, wow.
And
So sad.
so
Mm.
I'm not with him when he dies, but I'm with him right afterwards. And so I remember after they took him off to the funeral home, I'm standing in his kitchen and I am holding on to the stove and I am just saying out loud, God, let me bend and not break.
Mm. Yeah. Powerful. Mm.
And so my dad left me an inheritance.
Wow.
Chris and I had no children. And I used that inheritance to purchase this 40-acre ranch. Okay, here's where it gets weird.
Wow.
So 7 years ago, I had staged the property for sale. And
Really?
uh-huh. And the day that I came back from staging the property, I said to Chris, I was on the most amazing place today. And the first words out of Chris's mouth were, we're not buying it. He also said that about the house in Maine that we ended up buying. We're not buying it. And we did. So I sit there and laugh and now go, honey, yeah, I did buy it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we
We
did.
did. It's ours. Yeah. So, and of course, honest to heavens, if I had $5 for every time I heard from law enforcement, we are highly suspicious and skeptical people, I would be fully funded in perpetuity for my nonprofit. It was just like, okay, fine.
Mm.
So anyway, I go and I meet with the ranch owner and I tell him what I want to do because the property is not for sale. So I call the
Wow.
realtor and say, whatever happened to that property that I staged? And she's like, we pulled it off the market because nobody knew what to do with it.
Oh, so
So
this was the original owner that you staged for, so it
yes,
hadn't sold.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
They pulled it off the market. It's like God held that property for me
Yeah.
for 7
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I go up and
Wow.
tell him what I want to do. And he's like, but you never even saw the property. You only saw the house and you saw the caretaker's apartment and the barn. And I was like, you're right, I never did. He's like, go get in the gator. So, we go take off and we go up to the high point on the property and I burst into tears. It is so beautiful. And then he takes me to the other end, and it's an aspen meadow where the aspens are hundreds of years old. They're
Wow.
just enormous.
Oh my gosh.
And so we get back to the house, and he's sitting with his arms crossed, and I'm kind of like, okay, this isn't going so well.
Yeah.
And I said, Bert, there's two things I will promise you if I do this and if you sell to me. Number one, if for any reason this doesn't work out and this property goes up for sale again, your children will have right of first refusal to purchase it. And
Wow.
secondly, I know you wanted to be buried here, and I will make that happen.
Wow.
And he
Holy
looked
cow.
at me and he just said, go get your ducks in a row. So on September 11th of 2021, he agrees to sell to me. We signed the contract on Veterans Day. On March 4th of 2022, I got to get my years right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I buy the ranch. We start renovations March the 5th. We're open on June the 3rd. We have our first overnight guests August of last year. And then something really interesting happened. So I buy the property, we do the renovation, and nobody's coming.
Mm.
And I'm like, what's happening here? So then I started digging to find out more about what was going on. And that was when I discovered how chronically understaffed first responder agencies are nationwide. We
Yeah.
don't have enough first responders. And quite
Right.
frankly, that's part of what I do now as a educator, advocator, and agitator on behalf of first responders is to educate the public. If they knew how dangerously close we are in many areas to you call 911 and there's nobody going to be there to come help you, it would curl their hair.
Yeah.
And so I thought, this is crazy. So one of my board members of the nonprofit was the deputy director of public safety for the state of Colorado for a while. And I said, Beck, I need to talk to your old boss. So she made the introduction to me to Stan Hilke, who is the director of public safety. And I said, I want to launch a series of initiatives to make Colorado #1 in the nation for recruiting and retaining first responders using health and wellness as a platform. And he went, Kathryn, if you can crack the secret sauce of doing that, go for it. So we went for it. And we have introduced a series of initiatives called Colorado Puts First Responders First,
Mm.
where we're looking at, okay, I mean, as an outsider, this is also the other thing that's weird. To be let in the way that I have been let into the first responder community doesn't happen. I'm a unicorn and I get that.
Yeah.
But as someone from one of the fire departments said when I was talking to a large group about the concept of the ranch, he's like, most people bring us cookies or a lunch.
Mm.
Nobody buys us a ranch. And I was like, okay. So, but to be able to do like a grab and go meal program, because there is nothing healthy at 7-Eleven at 3 in the morning to
No.
eat.
Yeah.
And to be able to create an American Ninja Warrior style gym where you can actually train in situations that you're going to run into on the job. And then thirdly, why are there no 24-hour daycare centers for first responder families?
Yeah.
You're on graveyard shift and you know that you got to find somebody to take care of your kid at 3 in the morning. Who gets to do that?
Or you
It's
get
like
that call at
Mhm.
2 o'clock or 2:30. That's a
Right,
4-hour investigation. And what
correct,
happens? Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'm like, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
So I remember in talking with then Chief Dan McCaskey of the Lakewood PD, and I said, and why do you do such a crappy job of communicating to the public about why you do what you do? For example, um, we're so used to having information instantaneously.
Mhm.
So the day that Chris was killed, it took them a while from 2 in the afternoon till late at night when I'm notified. And people were like, well, why didn't they tell you? They're processing the crime scene. The coroner has
That's
to
right.
pronounce Chris dead.
That's
They
right.
have to
Yeah.
go in and do the information gathering to be able to prosecute the criminals that perpetrated this crime. So for us as the public to be going, we demand answers, you don't have the right to that information yet. And For the public to know my husband is dead by watching it on TV before I'm notified,
Yeah.
that is so scarring to families that find out that way.
Yeah.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like how this whole genesis of the ranch started, and the Colorado Puts First Responders First initiatives. So it is my commitment that we will have a restoration ranch facility
Mm.
in every state in the United States before I die.
Huh, that's
And
awesome.
we also have our Valor Vacations program,
Yeah.
where
What is
when
that?
so Valor Vacations is a program of Restoration Ranch where vacation property owners, I started it by donating time at my place in Maine. We have people who have vacation properties who donate time at their property to
Mm.
Restoration Ranch, to our Valor Vacations program. And then this was another thing that I learned. We made it so that you could be awarded, be nominated by your agency, and be awarded a vacation. So last year we were poised to give out 11 vacations, and we did. And only two people took them. And we were like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I was speaking at a trauma conference, and there was a Q&A afterwards, and the guy said, I have a question for you. He said, are you having trouble getting first responders to take your vacations? And I said, in fact, I am. Can you explain why? And he said, I think I speak for every person in this room that if we were awarded a vacation, we would know at least five other people we thought deserved it more than we did, and we're not going to take it. And I went, oh, thank you for helping me
Wow.
understand that. So we have modified the program. And I said, well, what if you like could rent it for a huge discount and then, be able to take your family on vacation that way? And they're like, we'd sign up for that all day long. So now through our Valor Vacations program, we have people who donate time at their vacation properties to the program. We offer them at a significant discount to the first responder community. Right now, it's primarily here in Colorado. Again, I want to blow this thing nationwide and have
Yeah.
10,000 properties, basically become the VRBO Airbnb for first responders. And
So
that's
awesome.
how we're using the money to fund Restoration Ranch and our Valor Vacations program. Because obviously, I'm one person and I can't do this by myself. So the story gets weirder. So the ranch owner's daughter, a woman by the name of Kat Patterson, comes to work for me because I need somebody who understands the workings of the ranch, and her dad owned it for 17 years. So she comes to work for me, and it turns out that she's a widow and I'm a widow.
Mm.
So before all this happened, I was one of the retirement readiness experts in the United States that helped people with the non-financial aspects of retirement planning. Like, how do
Got
you
it.
reinvent yourself? Where do you find your passion and
Mm.
purpose? And so her husband was partnered with a guy, and they used the book that I wrote called Your Countdown to Retirement as kind of a marketing tool for their
Wow.
financial planning
Oh,
business.
geez.
So the guy so there's two Bobs. Kat's husband was one of the Bobs, and I had met her husband before he passed. And she comes to work for me. I'm like,
Divine intervention.
oh, it gets better.
Oh,
It's 6 weeks into her working with me, and she goes, I should probably tell you this. I'm like, what? She said, before Bob was a financial planner, he was a latent print examiner for the Lakewood, Colorado Police Department.
wow.
I was like,
Wow.
what? She's like, yeah. So now we have a couple that are managing the ranch who had an idea similar to the Valor Vacations program. They were introduced to me and they're like, no, we want to throw our hat in the ring with you. Turns out the resort that they worked for went up for sale this summer. So they would have been out of a job. I had offered them a job. They're coming to work for me. I mean, Todd, you can't make this stuff up. And when
Mm.
people say, Kathryn, how do you get to do what you do? Two things. Number one, it's not me. I am so divinely protected, so divinely driven, so divinely guided in my life. That's who's doing this. And number two, when a door opens, by God, walk through it,
Say
you know,
yes. Say
say
yes.
yes,
Yeah.
say yes.
Yeah. Oh my
So,
gosh. Kathryn,
yeah,
holy cow. Like, first of all, amazing. Honest, words can't describe how incredible the work that you're doing, how you're helping our first responders and everything else. But I want to backtrack a minute. I want to go back. We got a few more minutes left for our podcast here, but when all those officers showed up at your house on that Christmas morning,
yeah,
and you went and got that picture, and you had those two officers there that were on scene, it humanized Chris to them. And I've been in that circumstance after the Las Vegas shooting. A couple of years later, it took us a while to get back to that scene. We go in, and they had a garden walk there with, where everybody, family came and they laid their pictures down, and they basically humanized these plots of memory in 58 plots around this garden walk. And so it was
mm,
very emotional for me, obviously, being there for the first time since that tragic moment. We're walking down this pathway, and about five in, on the left hand side, I come across a woman, and she was one of the ones that passed in my arms.
mm,
And what made it, I wasn't expecting this. And I think I can relate to those two officers that they probably weren't expecting that. When all of a sudden you see that picture beyond what is in your mind in that moment, she played softball. She was a mom. Like, there's this moment where you just go, oh my God, like it just hits you like a ton of bricks. And for me, and I can't speak for them, but I would imagine this is how they felt as well. I was so honored in that moment to be able to hold her with love in my arms. And as she passed, it was with love, not hate, not
great,
crazy crap that
great,
just happened. It was
great.
love that
Yeah.
she separated from or with. And it just humanized the heck out of it. So that really touched me. And I can't imagine what those officers felt. And it probably just lifted their hearts and
Yeah.
their spirits up. Just by you showing that picture was amazing.
So the first
Mm.
anniversary of Chris's death, I created 260 sets of angel wing ornaments. And on these angel wings were two charms. Well, two charms for the 60 that worked the crime scene. One was the date of Chris's death, and the other one said, "You make a difference every day."
Mm.
And I took those with personal letters to each of the people in the police department because, as you just said, they were with Chris when he died. They
Yeah.
were my first responder angels, my angels in blue. The story gets weirder. So remember the guy that I called and talked to on the non-emergency line?
Yeah.
It took him a year to tell me that he was there with Chris when he passed.
Oh,
He already knew Chris was dead. He literally was covered in Chris's blood when he was talking to me.
yeah. Wow.
And we become really good friends, very close friends.
Mm.
But again, to take that moment and to recognize the sacred and holy moment when a soul passes from this world into the next, and that when people are there for that, it is an honor and a privilege. And when people come up to the ranch, I talk really well, but I also listen really well. And I've had people share stories with me that I know that they have not told another living, breathing soul.
Yeah.
And I had one of them ask me, "Is it a burden for you to listen to this?" And I said, "No, because it's your story. But here's what I ask you: leave it here and learn to remember it, but not relive it."
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you know you're
Mm-hmm.
healing, is when you can remember it and it doesn't trigger you. But and I know grief is a spiral. It is
Right.
not a line, and it comes and bites you when you least expect it. But, I think you talked about the fact that, you've done EMDR, you've done a lot of the treatments.
Yeah.
I did EMDR for PTSD because I lived in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and had the IRA blow up a bomb across from the street from my
Wow.
office. And I moved back to New York. I couldn't be in a subway without the doors closing and me freaking out. But we didn't call it PTSD in the 80s. It
Right.
was kind of like, okay, she's just weird.
Yeah.
But then I've learned about tapping, I've learned about EMDR, I've learned about brain spotting, I've learned about just breathing,
Mhm.
just getting
Finding that
connected.
balance, slowing it
Yes.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I so admire what you're doing with I'm Going In. It's
Mm.
because you're talking about how do we get to that point and take what was meant for evil and use it for good.
That's right.
And that's where I think that if I were to say to anyone who has the misfortune of going through a traumatic event, get yourself a good support group.
Mm.
You know, I relied on my faith. It's seriously, and I was lucky enough to have people who loved me back to life,
That's
that
right.
were able to just be there for me. And each person processes grief differently, but to know that you're not alone, and unfortunately, there will be more critical incidents, there
Yeah.
will be more deaths, there will be more tragedies. But by creating a forum like this where we can talk about it, where we can connect and stay connected, I think that's the strength. We know that when two or more are gathered, everything
Mm.
multiplies. And so thank you for creating this podcast
Mm.
and for giving voice to people like me that are just, no, this will not ruin my life, and Chris will not have died in vain. No way.
Man. Yeah. So awesome. Love wins, right? Love wins.
Yes. Yes.
Sharing relatable stories is what I always talk about. You never know when you open up your thoughts, your love, your kindness. You're not afraid to tell that story of adversity and how you were able to stand back up for yourself, like you've talked this whole time. It's been amazing. And somebody listening to this is going to relate to what you have gone through. And it's about offering the opportunity for those survival guide moments, right? The next steps, what we can do out of an act of kindness to others, especially our first responders, understand what they're going through. The
Yeah.
fire community is, I think, ahead of the game in terms of what they're producing mental health wise, their SOPs across the
Great.
country. Our law
Great.
enforcement, we really need to buckle down with these people because
Yeah.
they're out doing calls individually, and then they're going from one call to another, not having an
Great.
opportunity to process like you experienced. What is that officer doing in that moment?
Great.
The trauma just happened. So
Great.
there's a lot of great people out there doing some great things, and you are definitely on that white horse leading the parade. So it's so
Yeah.
cool. So
Yeah.
I can't, your ranch sounds amazing though. It's
Yeah.
like
And
picturesque.
it's beautiful. It truly is. But just in
Wow.
closing, you brought up the statistics.
Yeah.
When I read that in 2022, more first responders died by suicide than died in the line of duty, that is unacceptable.
I,
When you learn that the average age of a first heart attack for a law enforcement officer is 42. Their
wow.
average age of death, 57. Their chronic disease caused by exposure to toxic chemicals and drugs is off the charts. And this one really got me because being a retirement readiness expert, the statistic was released, I think about a month ago. The post-retirement survival rate of first responders has dropped from 5 years to 18 months. That is not acceptable.
No. Wow, that's it makes me want to call my buddies right now and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Because some of them have just retired,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of questions going on in their minds.
yeah, They need to
Wow.
find passion and purpose because they've lost their identity. They've lost their structure. They've lost their social interactions. And it's like, Chris, when that's why I wrote my book, because Chris went into a terrible depression after he retired because it's like, who am I? I don't know who I am anymore. I can't do what I used to do. And so that's where we hope to be able to encourage first responders to come on board with a mentoring program that we're
Yeah.
creating to be able to use their knowledge and expertise because, quite frankly, we need it. We need it. They
The
need it.
Valor Vacations program. I mean, just everything you're doing, I think it's just amazing. How do people, and I'm going to be flashing like your images and be flashing your website, but let's just give kind of a verbal for those that aren't watching. How can people get a hold of you? And your book sounds amazing. So please talk about
Yep.
you, how we can find more about you. The
I
rant.
appreciate that so much. So our website is www.restorationranchcolorado.com. And if you go there, there's a Valor Vacations tag. It tells the story of what we're doing and how to reach us. You can either reach me personally at ksa@restorationranchcolorado.com or just for general questions, info@restorationranchcolorado.com. Our telephone number is 303-216-2989. It's also it's a mobile, so you can text us as well. I
Social
love
media.
social media. We have a Facebook page, we have an
Okay.
Instagram page. Yeah. So
We'll put all
we're
that
on
up.
there. And
Yeah.
we have a YouTube channel too. So we're starting to do more
Oh,
videos
cool.
as well.
There
So,
you
but
go.
yeah, Todd, I just love you. I hope we get to stay in touch. I feel
Oh, we
like you're a
will.
friend already. I have
Totally.
so many ideas that we can like bounce around. So
However, I can help you with my network and just spread awareness and love and everything else. You let me know. I am a friend for life. Now,
God love you.
you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for being on. I'm going in.
All
So.
righty.